There's the victims, the victors, where we tell stories about where we've been through for the reason of other people knows that one, they're not alone, and two, that they can become victors as well. Today I have a guest, man, my brother. We met a couple years ago, and through some interesting times, and it's just I feel that we pretty clicked. You know, he was a good guy. You know, liked to joke around, but you know, when you talk to somebody, you know, there's always something more when you talk to certain people, and I always felt that there was something more with this brother, something more, but I never was able to get a hold of it until we sat down one time. We just talked a little bit on the ride home from a job we were doing, and we just had a little quick conversation. But I was like, man, this guy's been through a lot, but through the years and through the times, he's overcome a lot as well. And everybody goes through different stages and different parts of their lives, but as we grow, we're able to share our stories and our testimonies where we've come through and how we've got to the place that we're getting to. Not to say we're perfect, and definitely not to say we're where we want to be, but definitely to say, hey, you know what? We're better than we were yesterday. So, man, Dan, thank you for coming on, man. And yeah, man, how you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing very well, man. Every day is a blessing, you know, and every day I'm learning more about myself, and every day I'm a better version of me.
Hey, man, that's the goal. That's for sure. That's for sure. So I just got a couple questions, man, and then we just get into the story, huh?
Yeah, sure.
So hey, we met in Oshawa, Ontario, but where were you born? Where were you raised? Where'd you come up from?
Newfoundland. Newfoundland is where I was raised, and
from the Rock, huh?
Yeah, lots of fun. Yeah, so I was raised there by my parents. They're still together. They live up here now. Moved up here in 2004. Yeah, it was after 9/11 because my old man had a sawmill in Newfoundland that did a lot of trading the lumber with the States, and then after that happened, then everything shut down. It affected a small town in Newfoundland even. So in order to survive, get some work, we had to move to Ontario.
Wow. So man, like, so 9/11 actually affected a small little town in Canada, huh?
Yeah, it's a small town in Newfoundland, man. That's 2,500 people.
Damn, you from a real small town.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I went to school up here at grade 11 and 12, and the population of the school was approximately the same as the town I grew up in.
Really, huh? So you just like the small towns. Why not move to the city, brother?
What's that?
Why not go to the city? Too much for you?
Toronto?
Yeah.
Wait.
I agree with that. I'm a city guy, but I'm trying to move out.
Nah, I'm trying to go back to the country, bro.
I hear you. You give me, 50 acres and a mule, you know?
Yeah.
That's for sure. Man, so when you were in high school, we're about the same age. So when we were in high school, if we were like, we sat beside each other, would you be the guy that's cracking jokes? Would you be the guy that's, into the books or, too busy on the girls? Like, what's up, man?
I was definitely the kid that cracking jokes, and I was pretty hyper.
Yeah.
Up until recently, the past couple of years, is when they figured out that I got that ADHD diagnosis. But I mean, it makes sense now, thinking about how I was as a kid. But I was definitely growing up in Newfoundland, I was bullied a lot too. So I had dealt with that for the majority, or for the whole time I was in school. I remember from kindergarten up, and then grade 11 and 12 in Ontario was a lot better for me. Started playing rugby and whatever, and I was the newbie, and people enjoyed being around me, I think. Just because of the spirit I had, I was just laughing, funny. I wasn't into the books. I didn't take it too seriously, and I probably could have taken it a little bit more seriously. Didn't care at the time. I didn't motivation, or I always knew that. I think I always knew that I was going to be in the military, and so I didn't really, do much with the schoolwork.
Yeah, I definitely. I was a wrestler, and yeah. I wrestled.
Yeah.
Girls
So
wrestled. That's pretty much what I
I
did.
just wanted to play rugby. It wasn't even girls, bro. I was not a hit with the ladies. I still am not.
Golly, man. Yeah.
Right.
See, we had a rugby team, but
Mm.
like I just thought it was crazy, man, because it's like essentially football with no padding.
Yeah, that's what I
And
liked about it. It was a real man sport.
see, it's good to watch, but I'll let y'all have fun with that because there ain't no way.
I'd rather
And
play
then
it. It was way better to play it.
like I'm good to look. I ain't a runner, I wasn't built to run, Let me
I
just stay in
wasn't
here.
either. I wasn't either until the military made me a runner.
I don't think you have a choice at that point, huh?
It's like do it or
Shit, man.
consequences to be had.
Daggone it. So like, so you're saying like through growing up, you always knew you're gonna be in the military, huh?
Well, it was essentially after we had to move to Ontario and directly, indirectly as a result of what happened in the States.
Yeah.
That's when I decided that I wanted to be part of something bigger than me. And I figured that, even that would be a good background, kind of a good resume
Yeah.
for whatever I wanted to do in the future.
Facts. Yeah. That's for sure. So
So
when you were in the military, there's a lot of jobs in the military. Where did you go specifically?
I went artillery. Um, I was gonna go. There's a couple jobs that you could. There's three slots that you pick when you're at the time when I was getting in that you pick the three different choices of trades that you'd like to get into.
Hmm.
So mine was already so artillery MSE up, which is like truck driver or engineer, and
Yeah.
then you do a aptitude test to see if you qualify for like either whatever you selected, right?
Hmm.
So I did qualify to be a combat engineer based on my aptitude test. However, it would have taken me. I had to wait like 6 months or something to get into basic training,
Oh
and
wow.
I didn't want to do that. And so they said, "Well, you qualify for artillery as well, and then
Yeah.
you go. Then you'd go in 2 weeks for basic." So I'm like, "I'm going to go in 2 weeks, man."
Give that one.
That was the deciding factor there, which trade I was going to take was either artillery or engineer, and artillery came up quicker, a lot quicker. So I decided to go with that instead.
Sounds good, man. Thanks. So that's like I always hear like this called like a 777 or something like that.
Yeah, the howitzer M777,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
100-pound high explosive rounds or 100-pound rounds, and shoot upwards of 30K.
whoa. What?
You can shoot upwards of like 30 kilometers around there.
Wow. So you touching
Correct
people far
area.
away, huh?
Real far.
Dang. Golly, man. So how was basic for you?
It was a challenge.
Yeah.
Good. I enjoyed it. I got a charge when I was in. I did something silly. I almost got court-martialed, but I took responsibility for what I did, and I don't know, getting a summary trial, and basically I didn't get um, court-martialed.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what the charge was now. Anyway, yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I had punishment. So what that punishment was like CB and the confined to barracks and fire pit hit.
Oh wow.
Anyway, and that is like change parade and stuff. And change parade is complete hell. It's not, and confined to barracks is not as simple as like you can't leave. It was there was always something that I had to do, like
Yeah.
change parade, for example, or PT, or then they PT me to death. I remember it was bad. I remember marching. It was with two other dudes, and I remember marching like high knees. It wasn't marching, but
Mhm.
it was high knees in a mud puddle. Make you do burpees in mud. Oh yeah, that
In mud.
just for punishment.
Oh
And
really? Yeah.
yeah, and then they like my room was about 15 minutes. Like the building is big, right? Everywhere you go, you have to march. And
Yeah.
so I'd have to go back to my room, and they'd give you these impossibilities, like these impossible tasks, like go and grab this, couple specific items, and wear this, and be back in 15 minutes. And it takes you roughly 15 minutes just to get to my room. So if I hit a stretch of hallway and I didn't see any staff, I'd book it. I'd sprint
Of
and then
course.
stop and go around the corner. Yeah, and then stop and go around the turn. marching and then book it again, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not even like you could cheat it, like bring all your stuff down and put it somewhere and then get there. And anyway, there's no cheating it. So every time you come back, you'd be a few minutes late, and that was just what they needed to give you a little bit more shit, you know. And
See, so any way they can find it, huh?
anything they can find, man. And it was just, you know, getting once I was on the other side of it, it was a lot better, obviously. But it was funny to watch now how they were doing things because they laugh after they give you a punishment. It was just teach you, man. You know,
Facts.
just to see how much you can take mentally. You know.
I hear that one.
Yeah.
3 questions. These are pretty tough questions. All right, so hopefully you can get them. Oh, one question is superhero. Who's your favorite superhero?
That is a tough question, bro. Like you mean like a Marvel superhero or like
Hey, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's what comes to your head for sure.
someone not real?
It could be real if that's what comes to your head.
I don't know, man. There's enough that there's between the guys that I was overseas with and the comic book guys. I would think if I had I don't know.
So
More of
if you
my
could,
fans would be like supervillains, bro. I'd be a fan more of a supervillain.
oh
Like,
man, if you could be anywhere in the world, anywhere, you can go to Hawaii, you can go to Belize, you can go anywhere, but you can only take one thing. What would that one thing be?
to take one thing or where to go?
No, so you can. So if you pick your, hey, I'm going to be in Hawaii. Hey, I want to be
Yeah.
in, wherever that is, right? The dream place that you want to be. What would be one thing or one thing that you would bring? Bring a phone and a bed.
Bible.
That's always a good one. That's a real good one right there, boy. I'd say
Keep
that's a
me.
good one.
Yeah. I
It
carry one
keeps your
everywhere I
mind
go.
strong. What do you mean?
I've always had one. Anytime I spend the night somewhere, I always have one with me.
Yeah.
So I had one under my pillow, one in my rucksack or whatever, everywhere I went.
Mm. So, hey, if you don't mind, can you, let us hear your story? Like, what was the hard parts, the sticking points, the trials, the tribulations in your life?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple. It doesn't just, start and end. I guess, I mean, I gotta understand my background too. Like growing up in Newfoundland, a small town, you don't really see much violence, right? And I know there's different types of trauma and how things affect you. So when I went overseas and you see the things that you do and what you have to do, what you have to see, there's sort of like a moral trauma too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this stuff actually existed. People did things to humans, and when I witnessed that coming from a small town, right, and not being exposed to violence on that kind of a scale or any scale realistically, besides like a brother saying the wrong thing to somebody else and punching them out and picking them up and buying them a beer. So there's part of that is like this moral aspect that can cause some internal kind of battle or grief or shame kind of thing, or just how to handle the different things that happen. But overseas, I mean, after I joined, and I was overseas pretty quick after I got in, and I was with the Quebec regiment, or not the Quebec regiment, Valcartier. I was in a regiment there, the base in Quebec, and as a newfie, I mean, I'm still trying to learn English and French at the same time. I wasn't very fluent in English or French.
Oh man.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I went overseas. Started Wainwright. We went to Wainwright after I first got to Quebec, and we spent a few months in the cold in Wainwright, Alberta. Picked up some French there, and then came back and then did a few 4 weeks with the Marines in Texas, and then came back and then went overseas. So that's a whole different story and a whole thing in itself, just Afghanistan in general. So much happens there. A lot of things that I had to work through. either because it's just traumatic or in the definition of what would be, I don't know if there's a definition, but what would be considered traumatic relative to how I was living before, like relative to my life before going over to Afghanistan. It was definitely an eye-opener and traumatizing.
So you said you were artillery. So were you like, you said your rounds can go 30 kilometers away. That's a pretty far. So were you ever on
They
patrol,
can.
like
I was.
actually
I
into?
was. Sometimes I was there fighting against, but then I was lab driver and also with the OP group. So my job was to call in the artillery.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So that means you're right in it.
Pardon me?
That means you had to be right in it if you're gonna be calling it in, huh?
Basically, yeah. I mean, a lot of the times you were around with the snipers.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So when you're on, I guess what would you call it? Like an operation, a mission, or like?
Yeah, the different ones. Just little operations. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you go out, when you leave your base, like what happens? Is it just like we see it on the news that, hey, that you guys drive down the street, go through these towns, sit there, talk to guys, maybe get ambushed, and they're like far away, you never really see them? Is that the way it normally was, or is it like you've seen the guys that you had to be engaging in all the time?
Most times, even from my experience and experience with other people, is that you see them. Um, you know where they're coming from at least.
Yeah.
So if you're in a little ticker, I mean, you just send rounds downrange wherever the direction that they're coming from in hopes that you pick them off, right? Because most of the time they're hiding behind a wall and they just throw their AK over the wall, just their hands exposed, starts spraying downrange, and they don't even see where they're shooting. They just spray it and hope to hit us. So we just pound through the walls usually.
Wow. So that's hectic when you can't even see what you're shooting at, or like what you're trying to defend yourself against. Like, hey, they're over there somewhere, type of thing.
Well, and the big problem is too, like, I mean, a lot of the time the civilian population would get mixed up with the Taliban, and in that case, it's a lot of the problem with how do you call it? What's the word for it now? Collateral damage.
Yeah.
So you don't want to amplify. You don't want to make that number bigger, right? Taking out some civilian population, because you want them to like us, right? We want them to like us. We weren't there at the academy either, so it was pretty bad. What they would do, they fire an RPG at you and then send the people in to surround it, right? That
Jeez. So they pretty much had like no rules, and they were do with anything,
No rules. Like, I mean, part of the Geneva Convention would be, not attacking medical buildings, places of, like a church or a mosque. Right? We don't operate out of them, and no shooting medics, stuff like that. But they didn't. These are like rules of war, basically. But they didn't have any. They didn't care. They just going for numbers, man.
Yeah. Wow. So what would you say is like something that you took back positive from Afghanistan? And if
positive would do a new aspect on the view on life, and how short it can be, and the freedoms that we are blessed with in this country, Western civilization. These third world countries, man, like Afghan is a beautiful place. Realistically, it's really green, and just some places in Afghan I remember seeing, and they were just beautiful, right? And it was just a shame that it was just so full of violence, and there's no time. No one really stopped and took the time to actually absorb it and look at it. And so when I come back, and seeing some kids and whatever overseas, and then I hear people here complaining about they got tomato on their burger, when I've seen some kids that probably not even alive now that never ever see a tomato, probably give a finger for a NATO kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we're over here so spoiled and entitled, and
Yeah.
so that's
It's
one good thing. I mean, I had different view on life and
That's for sure.
the
That's for
value.
sure. So you said there was like a lot of like obviously in more internal battle. There's a lot of internal battles as well as outside, physical battles when you were there. How did that affect you while you were there, or when you came home?
It didn't happen until a couple of, I'd say about 2-3 years after I got home, that I really started going down the wrong path. Started hitting home when I would see them here and they were living like normal people, and I looked at them as aliens.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, it didn't affect me. I had no conflict morally. I had no, like, I didn't feel anything, any problems with what I was doing, and then when I realized that, the way that I was over there, it was wrong. It was right for there, but the way that I came back with that kind of animosity, that kind of anger, and it wasn't, conducive to any kind of life here. It wasn't good to be that way. And then it started messing with my mind that this is how I was over there, and seeing people like taking people's lives or whatever, or doing this or doing that. It's wrong, blah, 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 it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then people telling me that I was the enemy over there. And then, you start hearing this over and over and over. And then you start thinking maybe, I still don't think it was wrong what I did. However, there's some part that that you still absorb from what people are saying.
Yeah.
When you start seeing, societal views, I get, it's wrong. To think the way that I was thinking was wrong, and I couldn't change the way that I was thinking because that was the way I was trained to think, man. And if you question things over there, what are you supposed to do? Some dude shooting at you, what are you gonna do? Sit him down and interview him before you see if he's a good dude or not?
Probably
Right?
not.
No. And I believe that everybody has the capacity to do kind of, I think, to do that. Despite some people say they could never do it, I think that everybody has that animalistic kind of capacity, and given the situation. But yeah,
I feel you.
I digress.
So when you came back here and you've seen people that were from the Middle East, you didn't have any animosity towards them here, correct?
At first, I kept painting them all with the same brush, man. Whatever color you depict as bad is what color I used to paint them all with, right?
Yeah.
You associate with bad, and I wasn't pleasant. However, over time, and definitely with therapy and my own, internal battles, and with religion and my faith in my higher power, and it definitely helped me, accept what I did and who I was. And it was a necessity at the time, but it's not now. I had to realize that I had to be this way there, or I'd be no good. But now I don't have to be that way, and that's something that I've learned on my own. And nobody in the military taught me that. They didn't send me back to Canada with this big program and tell me like, just decompression was a joke. It was fun, but it was a joke, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically an hour for the first 2 or 3 mornings. I can't remember how many mornings it was, and you had to pick a course, but it was just an hour, and that was their due diligence as I come to learn. They're saying like, "Well, we prepared you for living back in Canada," and then you come back and you just spend 7-8 months doing what we were doing, just to be 2 hours is supposed to help you reintegrate back in Canadian society is a bit of a stretch.
Did you like obviously when you're with your unit, there's obviously a lot of camaraderie built through training and obviously the exposure to being downrange. Did you guys talk about what you guys dealt with, or was it more just like, hey, you got to deal with it and move on with the mission?
Yeah, no one talked about it, man, because no one wanted to be that guy, bro. And no one. It's very masculine in a sense. I don't mean masculine in the gender sex. I mean like it's very like
Yeah.
nobody. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to. No one says, that I feel bad about this or this is messing me up. I mean, when I got back, I had a therapist on base, and I used to sneak out of the regiment, man, just so that no one would see me going to the therapist. You don't want to be that guy, man. You're weak. It's like a dude. It's like how men don't cry kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's amplified in the military. Realistically, it's just like we're not supposed to have emotions. You don't feel bad about what you did. You don't want to be that guy. However, everybody struggles with that too, and that's why a lot of people don't get help, man. They want to be.
Yeah, I never even thought about that part.
No one wants to be weak, right? It's not accepting of that. It's very almost barbaric.
Yep. And it's part of the world that we don't want to show, right? Like we see all these Hollywood movies that glorify it, that like you see an RPG hit a building and the guy goes flying and then he gets up and he still engages and all this stuff. And it's like, wow, oh my gosh, it draws you in. But then at the end of the day, like these are people and they have to live with this experience. Like to me and somebody else, it's like I can turn it off anytime I want. I can go in the next room, but
yeah, over there's no pause button. There's no
pause, no respawn.
Whatever the Call of Duty game is, when you respawn by pressing circle or square or whatever, there's no respawn button, bro.
That's the truth. This is probably going to be a little bit harder question. Did you have to ever experience one of your brothers passing?
I know where you're going with that. I've done a couple ramp ceremonies overseas and been pretty close quarters with some of the things that have happened like that. Those are always tough, man. But the worst part is coming back and dealing with suicides. When I came back to Canada, I thought it was done, and you lose a lot of friends by their own hands too, right?
Battlefield is not just physical; it's all here too.
It doesn't end when you come back to Canada, or for the American soldiers, it doesn't end when they come back. Any soldier, right? That's like,
So, what was when the way you dealt with it? Was there any like? Did you try to use substance like self-medicate? Did you just try to use whatever the doctors prescribed, or just like head against the wall? Like,
what started my downward spiral is I went out to like a survivor's party essentially, and my superior turned around. We were in a car and he had a line of cocaine on the CD case and he said, "Do this; it'll get rid of everything we did in Afghanistan." So I did it. It worked. A couple of years later, go on, fast forward like 2 years, 3 years or whatever, and I'm engaged. I own a house, and some trauma started, resurfacing, and started remembering things and having flashbacks. And then I remembered, hey, this stuff worked for me back then. So I dove into that, and it worked too well at the time. It was just a lie, but it worked. And I used to think it's what kept me alive from myself. Kept me safe from myself at times. Anyway, so I struggled with that for 8 or 9, 10 years. Just continually going back, and then I'd go to rehab, and then I'd get out, and then go to rehab, and I'd get out. So I've been totaling 9 times in rehabs, and yeah, but I've had flashbacks. So I swear I'm back there, and being sworn by cops and all that. So it's one of those things where you want to get the help, but it's so much your mind overpowers everything. It's just man, we got to get rid of this. We got to get rid of this, and so it's so easy to fall back into. Until I gave up and all this, whatever bit of power that I thought I had, and relearned everything the last time I was inpatient. And now I'm over a year clean, and I'm giving back now, and I'm doing a lot better mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, trying different things. And so, yeah. But then when I did, part of that was joining an MC and needing that sense of brotherhood again, that acceptance and all that, and I just wasn't, love the guys, but just wasn't, I couldn't go on that way. Just didn't have the strength to say no to what I was using to self-medicate, right?
That's true. So when you self-medicate, did you know it was like, hey, this is really just a period of time that it's going to help me, and then I got to get back on it? Or is it like, hey, I'm going to do it for like this period of time, and then I could do this, I could get over this type
of that's how it would start, I think. And then it would never ever be that way. It was start, and then 6 months later I haven't stopped, right? So that's how it came to be. At first it wasn't, but that's definitely how it came to be after. Sure. Yeah.
One of our first meetings when we first got together was we were at a club or a bar up, in the middle of nowhere, pretty much, and it was May 24th, and everybody's celebrating. And I remember we got there, and you were looking around. You were all pretty cautious, but we're bouncers, and that we're all pretty cautious guys. But there's one thing that happened, which I'm sure most people do, we take for granted, is the fireworks. When I seen you, like, I'm 5'11", 250, big guy, and you're significantly bigger. And I see this big guy, military guy. I'm like, whoa, okay, yeah, this is the guy. And I was like, when I seen your face, it was not what I expected, for me personally. It was different. It was like, okay, like it was a little fear, but it was more like a trigger. It was like, okay, like where's that coming? Like it was, and you're like, hey, I gotta go inside, or like I gotta see it. I'm like, what are you talking about? So can you like go on just a little bit of the difference, or like, well, what did that do to you at that point?
Fireworks has never fun for me to this day, unless I'm watching them. I know they're going to happen. If I don't know they're going to happen, then it's a scene sometimes. It's one of those things where it's very similar. I mean, if you listen to fireworks and just close your eyes, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like over there. Not so much the kind of like the more spirited fireworks, like it's like kind of like different sounds. I mean, like, it's hard to explain, especially the ones with the whistle and bang, because an RPG has that whistle before it explodes, like if it's over your head. So it sounds the exact same almost. And then the other ones sound like, small arm fire and yeah. So and sometimes sporadic, the inconsistent, it could be like 3-round burst kind of thing, or auto, or so it's definitely one of those things that I'm always aware of now. That fireworks are my biggest trigger these days. Whereas before could have been smells or anything. Like I know diesel fuel was a big smell for me that kind of messed me up. All the vehicles are all diesel, right? Certain smells, the heat. I've been riding my bike one day and there was dust because it was construction, really hot day, and I had my helmet on, my Harley, right? And I remember it was all these things all together. I was sweating. I had a helmet on. It was dusty and super hot. And I had to pull over, man, and work through it.
So is it? Do you like see it? Like, can you like when that
There's been
happens? Like,
times
can
where
you?
I have. There's been times where I have, but then there's times when the majority of times it's just trying to convince myself that everything's fine.
Mm,
Um, there's always that chance, that sometimes I think that something could be happening domestically, and the world we live in now, it's not so much of a stretch anymore.
definitely not.
So it keeps me on edge at times. But it's definitely one of those things. And now it's more like I just need a couple seconds to reset and say, yeah, it's fine. There's got to be a reason for this. These sounds, Daytime, there's nobody shooting fireworks. So if I start to hear that at daytime, I'm gonna let. And I hate those stupid rice rocket cars, man. They go the pop, 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 pop.
I don't like
Not
those at
only
all.
are they just straight up annoying, Canadian
Agreed.
tires, they're just not good for me either.
Fair enough. Just before we wrap up here, is so you've obviously had a lot, go on in your life through being bullied when you're young to just moving to a whole different province, whole different area, to joining the military and then going overseas and then coming back and actually having to still deal with some of those battles from overseas. Was there a defining moment, say, you know what, today I make that choice to, I can't keep living like this. I got to get better. I got to stop the usage. Was there a day, or is it just like progressive?
It's kind of a mixture of both, bro. It had to be a progressive process. It had to be one of those things where you had to hit a couple rocks, man, a couple rock bottoms, and this is a straight up motivation for life. After, when I had my kids, I still didn't grasp that at the time, and now I look at different ways. I'm going to live for everybody that can't now. Any soldier anywhere, man, that doesn't that struggles, bro. And my life goal now is just to give back and help, man, and that keeps me held accountable and keeps me motivated, gets me out of bed. But yeah, I guess at one point, I really realized that this is not the way that I wanted to go, and even when I relapsed, man, I knew that that's not where I wanted to be, man. It's not what I wanted to do with my life, and I felt like there was more for me. But it was just so powerful, bro. And until I found something more powerful than that, man, it was you know, yeah, it was a struggle until then. So it wasn't like woke up one morning, this epiphany, it was like, oh yeah, it's definitely a process, like a progressive with the, and it's not a one day you wake up, it's, 30, 40, 50 days after not doing the same, not living the same way, that you start seeing how things could be,
Mm.
have a whole new motivation for life kind of thing, right? You don't want to go back to that dark place.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And one of the last questions here is, if you had two things to say to guys that are just either went through substance abuse or going through it now, or coming out of the military, or gone that route, what would you say to them to help them out?
I'm a big, reach out. If I can do it, really, anybody can. Just reach out, man. There's always someone that's going to listen to you. There's always somebody that cares. Like, I mean, even me, all my brothers and sisters, man, and I'll fight for them, man. And there's help out there. There's so much, and there's so much more to life than the monotony of chasing the same high or getting drunk or just trying to chase that freedom that feels like in your mind. That's how I felt, right? So um, you can actually get that kind of freedom sober, just gotta
That's
work
true.
for it, man. Yeah.
That's true. You said you're did you say you're Christian, no?
Yeah.
Is there like one Bible scripture that you love that you hold on to at all, or is it just in general?
I'm not sure the verse, but it's a Psalms. I'm pretty sure it says, "The Lord is for me, so I'll have no fear. What can mere people do to me?" That's what I had tattooed on me when I went overseas. Now it's just that first part. The Lord is for me, so I have no fear.
Yeah, he is for you. That's for sure. That's for sure, brother. Man, hey, thank you for your time, man. Thank you for your time. It's definitely a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man. And hey, thank you again, huh?
Thanks, bro. Talk soon.
All right, brother. For sure. Bless.